listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, December 22nd, year of our Lord 2016. We have almost made it through 2016. I'm going to be so glad to say goodbye to this year, man. Just not even funny.
Oh, yeah.
Rough year.
I think a lot of people relate to that, dude.
Oh, you know, a lot of people do. I've heard a lot of people say, you know, pretty much F 2016.
Yeah, it's been kind of a crap storm, dude.
I've been saying this since the first day of it.
January 1st.
Really? All year?
January 1st.
You've had a rough time, dude.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a while.
Lost a lot of friends.
Yeah, me too, man. Especially lately. It's been awful.
Dude, there's like a hair all over sorry if I'm sitting here, there's like hair all over the microphone. It's going in my nose and my mouth as I breathe.
You think it's from the girl show?
Well, I don't know if I hope so. I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't know. Either way, it's not mine, so
they're
it's
pals
it's
of ours,
creeping me
you
out.
know.
That's why I said that.
So we're going to do something a little different for us today. Not that we have a guest on, but we're just getting straight to the topic. I mean, you know, we talk about what got us here, which are the things that go on in the world that don't really make sense, that are hard to explain, or the things that the explanations just don't add up. The facts don't add up, and you're just like, huh, really? No. But really, for us, the end game is where we end up, and that's why we're all together, and that is really where we're heading. And to that end, we have a good friends. We have James with us today. How you doing, James?
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm
doing okay, man. Doing okay now that I'm here.
Yeah, it's cool.
How's that traffic?
Oh my God. Oh. I really reverted back to my old ways for a while.
Yeah, for a good minute.
I was double flipping off a dude in a Chevy Tahoe.
Oh, so it was going on before you got here.
Oh, all the way here.
Okay.
It all started when I went to Bank of America, who closed down all their drive-thrus because their ATMs are so awesome. But, you know, the first one I went to didn't accept checks. I need to make a deposit. And, so anyway, that's my life. But anyway, So, we brought James on. James is a close friend of Dave's. Their families have been friends for a very long time. I've had the pleasure to meet James once or twice. Got a really good impression of him the couple times we've had an opportunity to talk, although it was for a very short length of time. But through Dave, I know many people that I haven't spent a lot of time with, because that's how it goes when you're a DiBiase pal, you know, when you're in the DiBiase family. But James made a great impression on me, and he recently had the courage to share his story with the rest of the world. And because where he's at now is where we're trying to help others get to, we asked him if he would like to come on and talk to us. So I'll throw it out to Dave, see if there's anything you have to say. Or if
dude, the way this kind of materialized is like most things, how it just kind of things fall in your lap, and you get cues, and you play on them, and got a good buddy of James knows him too. We'll call him Chris. I don't want to throw his name out there, you know, out of respect for the family, because it's going on right now. But if you know us, you know who we're talking about. He's in the hospital fighting for his life, man. After years of living the way we all have, he was just a professional. You know, he's fighting right now, and I got a text from you on my birthday from James.
Happy birthday.
I don't know, like, happy birthday. So I'm like, yo, he knows Chris. I'll let him know. We started talking, and then started talking about some of the things James has done and what he's been through, and it clicked in my head. I'm like, dude, we got to have you on the show. This is perfect. You know, it's a great story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good dude, solid dude,
Yep.
and I can totally vouch for it. It's not BS, just to, you know, come up with a cool story. And I thought maybe on the flip side of it, if my buddy who's in the hospital, if we can kind of reach out to him, now would be a pretty good time for him to
I would
pay attention to what's going on, right?
I would say with everything that you've brought me into the loop on, this is the perfect time for him to hear James' story. So, you know, our purpose is kind of twofold. You know, we want to share what James has to say because we think it's powerful, inspirational, but also there are people who need to hear it more than us.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and we'll kind of see, where it goes. But I think it's gonna connect. A lot of people will connect with it and be able to relate to it. And not everybody's life and situations are exactly the same. Everyone has their own kind of consequences and circumstances in their life. But there will be, I guarantee, something that at least from the conversations we've had, that someone out there that maybe need to hear it, especially around this time of year. It's Christmas.
Yeah, it's a tough time of year for many people.
They might go, wow, and maybe get on the computer, get on the phone, click a link, and then maybe find some people that...
I think that's the thing we lose. That's one of the things I've gotten out of some of the groups we're involved in, our men's fellowship group and things like that, that I think for me, the biggest thing on the way in was I felt ashamed and alone. Like I was the only one going through these problems. I was the only one who had was dealing with these issues or had these thoughts. And then you sit down and you talk to a table full of solid dudes. And they're like, oh, yeah, dude, that was last week. Oh, my God. And you're just like, wow. And I think that's one of the, communication is at such a minimum in our society because we're worried about hurting everybody's feelings.
Yeah, that and pride gets in the way.
Yeah, pride gets in the way for sure. For sure. And, so I think just being able to communicate the fact that you're vulnerable and you're not perfect and have other dudes go, oh, yeah, I'm vulnerable and not perfect too. And there's no shame in it, man. We're all dealing with something one way or the other.
So we posted a link to James' testimony, which that really...
Yeah, that's been on Facebook. That's the best part.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were like, okay, that's... it's really good. It's really well done.
Yeah, it is. They did a great job on it.
And, of course, James, the content is pretty cool, too.
Yep, and we are going to have that up on our YouTube channel as well. We're going to get a blurb with some information on the website, but for anybody who wants to look it up real quick or is listening to this as a podcast, all you have to do is search James Story Connection Church, and it will pop up right at the top. And it's one of the best 6 minutes I've spent lately. I was kind of feeling down, and I watched it, and it's real, man.
Yeah,
it's real, and it just makes you feel good, like there's hope.
Yeah, and here we got him sitting here, so
listening to us.
We're gonna chew on his face for 2 hours, and then maybe we'll.
He knows you a little better than me, so I'll let you start, and then I'll throw in my.
I don't know, man. With because it's you got to tell it your own way, but. I kind of like how they started. You kind of started in the beginning, like from your childhood, and a lot of people, I think, when you first get, when you're first connected to the network, when memories start forming at that age, things happen that have sometimes lifelong implications. So maybe just start talking about that a little bit.
Well, it's interesting. What you just said, Howard, about sitting down with a group of guys and having a safe place to be able to, deal with the thoughts in your head. I mean, it's not a man thing. It's not encouraged by society. You would think that, that's something that alienates you because who's really talking about it?
Right.
If we go back to, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but, part of the amazing, I grew up in the church. So, I mean, since I was a little kid, my grandfather was a Baptist minister, and my aunt and uncle were, in leadership. My aunt, in a Presbyterian church in Livonia.
Okay.
And so everything was about Jesus. Everything was Jesus. Yeah. My grandmother, I think you remember Oma.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Everything was about Jesus this and Jesus that, and I kind of laugh. It's not funny, but in that testimony, he was this mythical creature like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. He was... I remember when I was younger, it wasn't... I had no concept of what I'm dealing with today. I just knew that he loved me. He died. He was resurrected, and I had to believe in him to go to heaven. And that was awesome. But at the same time, I didn't feel like it was really changing my life. A lot of that could have been the circumstances that I grew up in. But I was just I was kind of at a loss for who, you know, we all saw the pictures, right?
Right.
I mean, we were growing up. There's the picture and the drawing of Jesus and everything like that, and you see him a couple different ways. He's on the cross, and you know, I pictured him from when I was a child in like a blue robe for whatever reason.
Right.
Some picture memories
Right.
from when you were a kid. Some picture I saw somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had my mother had a picture of, and I think we've all seen it. It was around in the 60s and 70s. It was a kind of almost a sepia,
Yeah.
like a dark sepia tint of his smiling face, and it was on her dresser, and I can picture it clear as day right now, and I probably haven't seen it in 20 years.
So, I don't know why this pops in my head. You said it was a free flow.
Yeah, man. We
Oh,
just kind of talk. Yeah.
There are
so-
no rules here.
Yeah.
My brother Jeff, he was 13 months younger than me, but growing up the way we did with a Baptist minister of the 50s and 60s, there's a lot of fire and brimstone.
Right.
And
Love
so,
the fire and brimstone.
I'm not in any way. My parents, they did the best they could with a problem child, but it was really important when we would show up to church and our hair was still combed and our shirt was tucked in and we didn't have any mud or anything. I don't know. I could walk 40 yards from a creek and the next thing you know, I'm falling in.
Yeah. Right.
I would always go catch frogs and turtles and stuff like that. So and they had a pond behind the church, and it seemed like either Jeff was pushing me in, but he would always, when we were kids, and my parents would look and go, "What the heck happened to you?" You know, and Jeff would turn around, so he was in between my parents and me, and he'd look at me and be like, "What would Jesus think, man? You're in trouble.
Said that when he was
You're
like
definitely
13.
in trouble." And he would like make this face, and it was the picture that we saw. So growing up, I really didn't. He was mentioned everywhere, but I really didn't. I really had no concept. Of
But I
what it
don't.
was.
Yeah.
I would think, you know, I mean, looking back on it, because I spent some time in the church when I was younger, but I did not grow up in it. I didn't go into it until I was 9 or 10, and then I kind of had issues when I turned 17 and walked away until about
6 months ago.
About
No,
2 years ago. About 2 years ago. No, about 15 minutes from
Yeah.
now.
Like right before the show.
But you know, I think it's hard for a child to understand the power of Christ's love because you haven't really gone through anything yet. You know,
Well, let me ask you honestly. I mean, I'm 42. I'm just starting to comprehend
Right. And that's fair.
exactly,
a
Yeah.
glimpse
Yeah.
of an idea
exactly.
Yeah.
of what it is. I'm not saying I couldn't have grasped this level quicker had I stuck with him and not run away, but how do you teach a kid? What do you teach a kid 7, 8, 10 years old? You know, that,
Well, that's a good
it's not-
question, dude.
So it's not theory. But
Yeah,
you can actually
it's,
get some application out of it.
It honestly, because it's just kind of playing out in my house, right? With the kids, and I think it's just you keep them exposed to it. If stuff comes up about things, I can't even think of a specific example off the top of my head. You just make sure you always make mention of the reality of the situation. Is, you know, well, XYZ happened, so you make sure, you know, you talk to God about it. Or you just kind of, you know, you go to church. I take the kids there in church every Sunday. So they're no stranger to it. And I don't know that we're doing anything different than, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I'm sure their experience with it is going to be probably right in line with everyone's same story. Because, you know, I kind of grew up in the Catholic Church. And all we did in church was get in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Because we were just screwing around all the time and always, because it was like, it was just so weird. I mean, it was just very strange thing because it was, you know, everything's very regimented and very specific and very chanty and kind of different. And when you're a little kid, dude, you're just ready to get out of there.
No, but something just popped into my head. So I'm wondering if that's one of the first times you just accept something that you don't understand and you go along with the adults. Because I did get in trouble in church, probably like you did.
Oh, yeah.
That you knew when you went to church It was different. Like getting in trouble at home.
Well, I
Sometimes
have-
you didn't
It was
respect
totally
your parents.
different. Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up, the time I spent in church was Lutheran, so it's kind of like hippie Catholic, you know?
Yeah, that's accurate. That's actually accurate.
And I happen to be blessed with a 9-year-old right now, so I'm going through it. And I have the advantage that he was probably 7 when we joined this church.
Okay.
So he's seeing a change in my wife and myself, and he has noticed a huge change in the people around him. So my whole plan is, and I'll tell you, it's one thing that differs, because in my parents, they did not talk frankly with me about the consequences. See, that's one of the big things I
Yeah.
think we miss, is this whole concept of prosperity ministry that became really popular in the late 70s and early 80s. And if there are no consequences, then there's no real reason to follow along, because, I mean, you're not risking anything. And so for me, I talk straight with my kid. I talk like the three of us are having a conversation right now. And the funny thing is my son learned a lot about good and evil through this presidential election cycle.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, when it's in your face, you might as well use it, right?
I'll tell you a quick story I've told on the air before. I'll give you the condensed version. I'm so proud of my child. There were some kids at his school, and we all know schools are bastions of liberalism, you know. And there was a kid at his school that made a joke about something. How he's like, "Oh, I'm not that. I'm a Christian." He's like, "Oh, you're a Christian. You're good. Oh, you're gonna go to hell. You're a Christian." He looks him right in the face. And goes, "Well, at least I'm not Hillary Clinton." I'm like, "My boy,
Go with that.
my boy." So I think the conversations we would have with our children, because of our experience, they're totally different than the conversations our parents had with us.
Yeah.
Well, there's freedom, and I can't remember if me and you have had this conversation just in quick passing, but the key is to teach your kids to talk to your kids, to talk to them honestly, to let them know what's going on. I can remember when I was a kid, the whole thing was, "Oh, there's nothing wrong, everything's fine, smile," and then we got chastised for complaining or pointing out. Not to bring him up again. Jeff. Jeff was always, "No, it's not fine. The house is burning down." "Oh, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine." But today, and I think a lot from the prosperity of the way the ministries have changed in the last 30 years is people are able to have different conversations with their kids. I have a lot of friends that have kids, and they are not, while their experience may be relative to what we dealt with in the they're planting seeds, the conversations, and I think they're, in what I see in my friends, their kids are able to comprehend a lot more than my parents ever would have given me credit for. And looking back, I'm not sure if my parents had that comprehension.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, dude, and I don't think that's anything to be taken personal by our parents' generation.
No, they did the best they could.
You know what I mean? Because they were given certain tools, which was...
Well, and you have to look at the times, too.
Well, that's the thing. They were given certain tools by their parents, which in some ways is way more than we get, but in other ways fell way short.
Yeah.
And that's not an attack. It's just a fact.
It is. It's a symptom of the times.
So, but it is, you're right. When you say you got to talk to your kids, you have to be honest with them. What you talked about with your son is kind of playing out with my older daughters because, I had a couple of do-overs and I have kids from the age of 0 to 50. Yeah. But,
beautiful kids.
They are awesome kids. I don't deserve any of it, but here I am.
You deserve more than you'll take credit for.
But the two older ones, you said something really key that sticks out to me, is that they actually are old enough to comprehend witnessing the change that's taking place and the content of conversations and what it is that Dad's talking about all of a sudden, or the young ones. So I kind of have this weird test tube going on in my house. I don't even realize it. Oh. We'll see how it pans out. I'll let you guys know. Make a reality show out of it.
Yeah, and the rest of my plan is that my son is surrounded by absolute Christian kids.
So they all have the same comprehension. They can all talk to each other.
And our hopes. I've talked with the other parents, and some of the other parents have been like, "Man, do you know how lucky we are?" And I'm like on so many levels. But what exactly are you talking about? And he's like, "You realize that these guys are going to be best friends forever. That they're always, that is, as long as nothing horrible happens, we don't have to move away or anything. All of us plan on staying here. These guys are going to be best friends all through high school. And I know these kids, and I know my kid as well. He's a solid kid. He's got a good heart. He wasn't a monster like I was. And
it's interesting how that happens.
It is.
But he's so much like me in so many ways, except that.
Yeah.
He's just cool. Not a monster. So I'm going to choose to believe that it's parenting. Sorry, Mom. But, having these other kids around him, even if one of them veers off, and is like, hey, man, what if we,
Yeah.
3 of the other 4 are going to be like, dude, and that's
it's like an accountability thing.
That's what I'm saying. And it's accountability, it's responsibility. And I worry less. A great weight has been lifted off my shoulders when I ended up in this situation.
That's awesome. It wasn't by accident.
No, absolutely. No, it was absolutely by plan. And another person we're going to bring up that, ironically, I didn't get to know as well as I wanted to get to know. I was getting to know him, but someone that was huge. He changed my life. Is Dave's brother Tony?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because he was the impetus that got me and Dave talking, that got me where I'm at.
Yeah, that really was
here without him.
That was the total catalyst for Hooper. We're hooking up with it. I didn't even really know Dave before that, and I saw him show up to the funeral, and I thought I should call this guy and thank him, which, as an afterthought, his question to me was fair because I don't really know why. He's like, "Why did you call everybody and tell them thanks for coming, or just me?" And I'm like, "This kind of
it's an intelligent question."
And I actually was like, "No, just you." He's like, "Well, that's interesting," and I'm like, "Yeah, kinda." And then this kind of morphed into
there was 700 people at our movie premiere a few weeks prior to Tony's unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah.
Okay, but yet out of all the people that Hooper met, 2 that stuck out to him were Dave and Tony. Well, why? Well, come on. I mean, spend 10 minutes with Dave and Tony, and they're going to stick with you. They're those kind of people, okay? And that's what Dave had mentioned to me several times after. He was like, man, I got to get with your buddy DiBiase. Him and his brother were super cool. I'm like, yeah, have you met any of my friends that aren't cool?
That's all you
We're not talking about your friends.
That's all you.
No, sorry, Dave.
Yeah, but no, that was absolutely that unbelievable tragedy. Yeah, led to some. I mean, it used to be hard to even kind of think this way, but it's very easy for me now because it's so obvious to me. That horrible thing led to some really amazing things that I never could have comprehended before that. No, I mean, never could even.
There aren't words to describe.
No, it's hard. We try on this show and we fail. But I mean, it is. You're right. It's very hard to capture in any language on any level of understanding because some of it is it's beyond our
it's beyond comprehension.
Understanding.
Yeah,
I kind of look at that. Like you can explain it to me, and I'm gonna get like 40% of what you're saying. But when those situations happen, I kind of look at that as like a gift from God to you to say, "Hey, look, I allowed this to happen in your life, and you chose to follow me and to seek me." And I just want to let you know, I'm not leaving you out there hanging. Like, watch this thing come to fruition and watch what comes through that. And it's weird to look at some of that stuff and you're not grateful for any travesty in life.
No.
But you look back and it's like, holy cow, he was working through this entire because it's hard to remember that all the time. It's really easy to just go, revert back to old thinking. All it takes is a thought, and you go back on that second thought, and if you're not where you should be, I mean, down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, well, and that's fitting. Because it can go that way, and we see that in some levels in our own lives, and in other people's lives that we have already buried. We've seen it play out a lot of different ways. So, to be thankful for it is something that the Bible says, but I think it's fair to say we kind of understand what he means when he says that. You know what?
I don't think it's like thankful, like thank you for paying for my dinner.
Yeah, like awesome, thanks.
Or,
there's a depth to it that's hard to explain because it's such a it's a 3D book for sure. And everybody has their moment, right, where it clicks.
If we're lucky.
Yeah,
well, if you're
we're
lucky,
yeah.
But obviously,
and
you
the funny thing is for me though, and we've discussed on the show before, and I'll ask James if he's seeing the same thing, but I am watching people I've known for years live without God in their lives, had what we assume to be decent lives anyway, regardless. Thought we walked the line that so many people are walking now, but it's kind of, oh yeah, I'm a good dude. I think I do more good than bad, so I think on Judgment Day I'm going to be just fine. And I mean, obviously we know we feel a little differently about that now, but I am. Is it just me, or are people waking up and converting to Christianity in droves right now?
I'm shocked the more people that I talk to or that I notice that have come around, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to use the revival, but it's happening in so many different, there's so many seeker-sensitive churches out there. Like you were talking about the changing of the ministries and everything like that. There's good and bad with everything. This definitely is my opinion. I'm not a theologian or a minister or anything. But,
right.
With all the seeker-sensitive churches out there, allowing people to get in the door and to get something that they didn't get from their parents or their grandparents, and it is different. And God's at play in this too. I mean, he's called, like you were talking about meeting Dave at Tony's funeral.
Yeah.
That's one of those moments that just time stops for a quick second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So out of all the people, and I don't know if it was the exact same thing, but those things happen, and they happen for a reason, and they get indelibly imprinted into your somewhere other than just your brain, because you forget 90% of what you do during the day anyway. And that's God, in my opinion, working through this. And I'm not as shocked. Looking back on the last 40 years, we went, my grandmother, Oma, did everything she could. We went to private school for third to ninth grade, 8th grade. I went to private school.
Okay.
And so you grow up in this bubble, of this is how it's supposed to be. This is what it is. And again, obviously this scarred me, so I'm going to keep saying it. But the church of the 50s that grew my parents and grew my, my family and everything like that, it really was a lot of fire and brimstone. It wasn't a lot of talking. It wasn't a lot of feelings. It wasn't a lot of anything like that. And then I get to public school. And
then it's like
I don't like I got kicked out of both private schools, but the culture shock is just absolutely amazing. So tying this in a little bit to what do you talk to your kids about so you keep them evenly balanced. Again, I'm not going after my parents. They did the best that they could, but
right.
There was no debriefing. When you go to war, they bring you home for 120 days or whatever, and they teach you how to be human again.
Right.
And I just went straight into the public school system, and then my parents' problems or issues or whatever was too much for them to deal with, so they started the process of divorce, and 9th grade. I passed weightlifting. Like, that was it.
Only weightlifting.
Like, weightlifting.
Right.
Like, it was the first hour of the day. I had a friend who...
you officially passed more classes in 9th grade than me.
Well, in 10th grade, I was, again, taking 9th grade classes. But, no, I had a friend who had lost his mom, and so he had a license at 15, for not emancipation from the state, but there was something you could do.
Yeah, they do that.
And he had a cottage. So we would show up, and we would go to first hour, and then, good old Plymouth Salem, and then we would go out to the cottage, and that's what I did. So I went straight from this crazy. Everything has to look good. Your hair can't touch your collar. You can't this. You can't this to the next.
Yeah,
I'm living just with my mom. I'm going to weightlifting, and that's it. And then I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
You know,
you got warped into the movie Animal House.
Well, why wouldn't I run at that point?
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I think that's kind of we're a product of our time, because if you think about it, you can totally liken it to what we're talking about between believers and non-believers, okay? So you came from a structured environment where there were rules and there were consequences, and then all of a sudden you came to Hillary's America.
I'm not getting political with you,
but you know what
he can't help himself, James.
I can't help it. I can't help it.
You get used to it.
I have an issue.
Yeah.
But then you come into a free society where there's no rules anymore, where you're dealing with subjective morality. There is no moral absolute, so you can just do what you want. Oh, you don't feel like going to your last 4 hours, so don't go to your last 4 hours.
Yeah.
So where do you go with that to believers versus non-believers and people getting converted more? Because I do agree with what you're saying.
Statistically speaking, all right.
I think it's a sign of the times, personally.
Statistically speaking, there are more people, quote unquote, converting. Even actually in record numbers from Islam, which is quite curious.
Yeah, I've noticed that lately too. Wow.
And these are all numbers that they can
substantiate.
Quantify this.
Yes.
But what on a street level, the word I always use, on our daily happenings, I'm at least noticing for sure that people are at least paying attention to it. Like there might be something to this. And it's not so much outright rejection if you bring it up. More people are like, yeah, man, totally. Like it was like, wow, really? That guy too? Like he's kind of paying attention. He's like, I saw such and such, and I get it, dude. And like, what? It's just kind of odd.
That's awesome.
But I think this has been predicted, so
that's true as well.
It's not so surprising. It's just it definitely is happening. There's no question about this. And even if they're not diving head first, they're at least at the very least, maybe on their mind once in a while.
Well, I think our generation was brought up with enough biblical knowledge, unless you were Catholic, with enough biblical knowledge to understand. We had some concept through all the movies and all the talk and TV shows and everything of Revelation. And I think that there was enough, at least there was for me. And again, I grew up Lutheran, walked away before I was 18 years old, but I always stayed interested in religion. I wasn't anti-religion. I just had my issues I needed to work out, and if I was ever smart enough to pick up a Bible, I probably would be celebrating my 30th year in the church. But it's like I went everywhere but to the Bible for answers when all the answers are in the Bible.
But even that's human. So you had to do that, though, in order to get here.
Yeah, and I'm cool with it. I mean, I don't have any regret because, I'm good with where I'm at. I'd like some things to be better, but I've been blessed, and I realize God's intervention in my life. My wife is incredible. I've got a healthy, intelligent, phenomenal 9-year-old kid, if I do say so myself.
Good, congratulations.
Thank you. And I mean, and I don't deserve either one of them.
I can vouch for that, actually.
He can. Well, he's actually got a signed document.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I don't know how I ended up with my wife. Well, I mean, I do know how I ended up with my wife. Very similar to the way he ended up with his wife. And, I thank God for her every day. It's just like, what would I do without you? I'm such a wreck. What would I do without you? And then every now and then I get to step up and look good for a while, fix a hinge or open a can of tuna. But seriously, and when you have that kind of powerful things moving around you in your life, it's at a point it's impossible not to recognize it. And then once you recognize it, you start connecting the dots. It's like, oh my God, all this stuff happened.
But that doesn't happen for everybody.
No.
I'm looking at how many years.
No, you're right.
I ran.
Yeah.
Knowing those. So going back to what you were saying earlier about conversations with your kids and, this, that, and the other thing. It's planting seeds, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, sure.
And that is, I don't deserve I don't deserve to be where I'm at today. Yeah, on paper I look horrible, but just healthy, operating on a daily basis, sober, connected with a church, and in a ministry at this church, and happy all the time. I mean, I ran as far as I could. I did everything. There's very few. My list of things I haven't done is so much smaller. And so I say, it didn't. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to tell you I'm a genius, but I'm not stupid by any matter. But you look at the decisions I made to avoid having to deal with God and what I had done about dealing with my past and stuff, and it just made more sense at that point just to run. I mean, what do you care? I mean, there are times I didn't even think I was going to wake up the next day or worry about the next day. So why at that point, in my mind, would I have chosen God? And I was doing absolutely nothing to put myself in a position to where I could get anybody to speak into my life. I would avoid people like that. I mean, when my grandma was still alive, oh yeah, hey, how's it going? But it's it's amazing that it's amazing to understand that he has a plan, and he'll let you. I'm in this ministry at church called Celebrate Recovery, which is it's really saved my life. And we can talk about that more later. But there's this one girl that had a testimony, and so every 2 weeks they have a testimony, and the other 2 weeks they have a lesson, basically. And so people get up there and they say where they've been, what they've done, how God's helped them, and really talk about the program and the step study and the victories that they're getting in their life. And I never ever identified with a female testimony.
Okay.
And I don't know why. I mean, there was one that she had an awesome story, but there was too much alcohol, and I identified, I did drink a lot of alcohol back in the day. But there was one girl that to say that she did everything she could to run her life off the tracks over and over and over and over again and get grace and get grace and get grace and get grace. And I remember sitting there listening to this testimony going, holy cow. Like, this is no joke. You know what I mean? God really does, when he moves in your life and when you choose him and when you seek him, he really can absolve you of your sins. And he really can make you white as snow. And he really can say, hey, that was cool, but just put that down now. Let me have it. And let me move you forward in life, because I have something better planned for you. It's astronomical. I mean, we can all sit around this table and say, yeah, I don't deserve that. I don't deserve that at all. But when I'm sitting there in the quietness of my mind, and I try, the cool thing is the memories are fading now. All of the stuff that I did, all the experiences that I had, all the regret, all the anger, the more, I'm not doing anything spectacular. I'm not doing fundraisers. You know what I mean? I'm not doing anything huge. I'm choosing daily to seek God and to read his word and to pray and to keep myself around people. I find that God in my life affirms a lot of what I deal with through other people. So you'll have random conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the next thing you know, like in 1 week you'll hear something about a verse, or you'll hear, and to me, when I hear that, I'm thinking, okay, he wants me to remember that.
Yeah,
I agree.
But the farther I get into, I can honestly say, had I not been where I've been, I would not appreciate
I agree.
today, or even have the clear-headedness to say, wow, I have a glimpse of tomorrow and a glimpse of eternity. And that's all I have. But it doesn't scare me anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
I know exactly what you mean.
The closer I get to him, there's things on paper I can't ever take back. There's things that I've done that I can't ever take back. But when I'm able to take them to God and truly give them to him, he's actually graceful enough to give me a peace to say, okay, man,
Right.
You know, leave it there. Make your amends with that person, and leave it on the table, because it's not him. It's the deceiver that's saying, "Hey, dude, you remember this? Hey, man."
Oh yeah.
And that's something we talk about a
You
lot on
remember
this
that?
show.
Busy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this real quick. The deceiver, he cracks me up. He'll come in catastrophe. We've all experienced catastrophe in life, and I've noticed that in my life, it isn't about the catastrophe. It's pretty interesting. When I describe my life today, it's boring. There is no roller coaster. There is no up or down. I'm not swinging on emotion or anything like that.
I love that level ground, man.
Yeah.
But I can almost predict what the week's going to be like, and for me, that's awesome. But the deceiver doesn't get me anymore with the catastrophe or the emotional roller coaster. I kind of describe it like a gnat that bites your ear. And so this gnat, in my mind, bites my ear, and I make my deadly mistake. And I go and I'm like, you know what, I'll pinch that off, or I'll scratch that off. And before I know it, I've chased that gnat all over my ear, and now my ear's bleeding. And then, a couple days later, the side of my head is bleeding. And then like a week later, I've just picked and picked and picked. And at this point, I noticed now I'm asking God to fix the hole in my head that I just dug in my head, when I should have, from the very beginning, said, "Hey, man, check out this gnat.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do with this tiny little gnat?"
Yeah.
And
but it's a hard habit. It's a hard habit to break.
the deceiver never stops.
Yeah, no,
he just keeps throwing it at
Yeah,
you
and
left
it
and
gets-
right.
But I'm talking about one of the things I've dealt with is it's still. I mean, it's way quicker, but I still am suffering from the delusion that I'm in control, that I have control in my life.
That's awesome.
It happens. It happens a little bit, but then
I'm the
realize,
smartest man in the room. I'll tell you that right
No,
now.
absolutely.
For this moment. Yeah,
absolutely. I am the smartest man in this chair, and it takes a second, and when you're new to this, when you're new to this walk, you still revert to your own ways occasionally. You start to go on autopilot. It's always work or things that I've done for a million years, and you start to revert, and then all of a sudden you just like, wait a minute, I don't need to be stressed out right now. I don't need this.
Yeah.
You know what? God, take this off
It's
my
like
back.
that's like once a week for me.
Isn't that
So
Isn't that one of the greatest gifts, though, when you finally get to... I have gotten to this point, and I fail with it often, but it's now showing up enough in my life that I don't have to stress about this.
People have no...
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I have to control... I don't. What if I learned this... you guys were all talking at the beginning of the show about, letting this year go. It was a bad year.
yep.
A year ago, in a couple weeks, so December 9th of last year, I had diverticulitis for 4 years. And I'm smarter than doctors. I'm smarter than everybody else. So I would get this, and I would overload on probiotics. Because somebody told me, hey, probiotics will beat it back. And I'm not a huge medicine man anyway. I'm not really, wasn't really into that. And I laugh because I got a diverticulitis outbreak or flare up or whatever. And if I had made it to the following Wednesday, I was so convinced my life was now going to be in control. Like I had everything figured out. I had everything solved. All I had to do was complete this job and do this and do this and do that.
Right.
You were talking about a plan earlier, and I feel like God laughs at my plans. But come Tuesday morning, mind you, I'm 36 hours away from perfecting my plan because I'm smarter. Not once did I ever give it to God.
Wow, we live the same life.
I've already had diverticulitis for 4 days now. And this is the first time in 3 years that I'm laying in bed. Like, I'm just like, they compare, this is stupidity. This is not being tough. They compare that pain to, like, childbirth. Yeah. And so I'm working with this. And I'm laying in bed Tuesday morning. I'm like, all right, I just got to get through this and get till tomorrow. And I heard the worst sound I've ever heard in my life. It was like a tea kettle. And then my colon exploded.
Terrible.
And then, well, hold on. And then I sat there. I cleaned my house. I went and got food for the cat. I was trying to come up with a way not to go to the hospital because I'm Again,
It'll patch. It'll clear up.
What can I do to just patch this up? Can
Probiotics.
I swallow something?
Yeah,
Can
so I can go to work.
So I can
prune
get to work.
juice. Drink some prune juice.
Because
would be good.
I was going to fix my issues.
Absolutely.
Rather than take it to God. And no, I ended up having a colostomy bag for 6 months. And then I had a second surgery.
Yeah.
And then, so that was absolutely horrible. I was off work I did that, and then a month and a half later, I almost lost 2 fingers on a chop saw. So I've been off for 6 months this year. I've been off.
Yeah.
In that process,
and what I find is, when I'm trying to just get that last 6 hours in, to not waste the time I have to get my stuff done, that by the time I'm taken out of the game, if I just would have gone and done and given it up to God, gone to the doctor, done something smart in the first place, the amount of time I would have lost would be so insignificant in comparison to what you lose when it takes you to the very end before you go, oh, okay, yeah, no, I have no choice now.
but then you got to give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Eventually,
you're going to hand it off.
You got to let it go. And so you were talking about letting stuff go and giving it to God. One of the things that we do in the Celebrate Recovery Ministry is a 12-step program, and the step 3 is a surrender prayer. So we surrender. But in going through this, if I'm not, and I'm not even close to doing this. If I did this once a day, my life would be better. But there's times that I have to surrender my thinking and surrender my perception. I'm the smartest man in the room. I'm wrong, but I still don't know that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm finding that my days are going better and my weeks are going better and my life is going better when I'm smart enough to go to prayer, and I'm smart enough to say, even when I don't want to go to prayer, and say, hey, I don't even want to be here. I'm distracted, but I need to just surrender my thinking because I'm starting to notice patterns that are going to take me way off course.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do until you actually do it.
Till you think you do it, but the longer I get into this, the more I realize, well, I thought I did last time.
Yeah.
So everything is a graduated scale
Sure.
with the more, knowledge and understanding that you get.
Yeah, I mean, it can increase, weekly if you're studying, but when you get into a pattern where you finally start doing that, where you're just like, you know what? I don't want to be in control, and you change your habits to live that way. Things are not quite as hard as I thought they were.
They're way easier.
No.
You know what I mean?
I do less. I do
it's-
less during the day. And I mean, like I said, I'm still cleaning up 41 years of crap,
yeah.
but I'm starting to clean it up. I'm not starting to clean it up. God's starting to solve things for me. Yeah. The more I ran it to the very end. I don't have, I had my colon exploded. I had no money saved up, and then I was off work for almost 6 months. He really put me in a position, allowed me to be in a position where I said, dude, maybe I'll start listening to everybody around me and put me down for a minute. Because what is James's fix for, hey, dude, your colon's exploded.
Right. Yeah.
Your gut's bleeding, you going to go make some money? Oh, for the first time in your life, you can't go to work. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And my life really changed another time. I mean, my life has changed. You had said something earlier about, oh, yeah, and then when you get it, I've probably thought I've gotten it like a dozen times, you know what I mean? And come back and this, and this, that, and the other thing. And once I do, I'm smart enough this time to go, okay, what can I do not to backslide that much if and when that happens versus thinking, oh, yeah, everything's great.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be perfect. There's always something that I can do with my relationship with him. Through prayer, or through reading, or just talking to other people, like you were saying earlier. The Celebrate Recovery, it's crazy to sit down at a table of 12 guys, and it's like an open share, similar to what AA does and stuff like that, and have everybody in that room know, hey, this is a safe place. I can talk about anything. Yeah. One thing before I got into this program, so I've lost I've lost 2 brothers to suicide. I say I lost a third non-brother, blood brother, which would be Tony, Dave's brother.
Yeah, my brother.
To murder. And when you say something like that, the greatest thing, like 3 people said to me, hey, I have absolutely no idea what you're dealing with, but I'm praying for you. 99% of people are like, oh, I lost a cousin.
Yeah, right. My dog died last week. I know where you're at.
Yeah.
I know.
I lost my cat last week.
I lost this.
Yeah.
You know, and, one person actually said, you know what, my sister thought about suicide once.
So I totally get it.
And, so you, well, what do you...
I know, dude.
They mean well.
What do you say?
People
what
mean
do you
well.
say to
you,
something
you
like
don't,
that?
you know, and
You have to remind yourself in that time, hey, people are trying to help. You just made them really
for
uncomfortable.
Me personally,
yeah.
For me personally, I'm thankful that people don't know.
Yeah.
You know, when they're clueless, I just, you kind of take it. Well, look, they have good intentions. I try not to be offended by it, and I'm kind of glad that they don't understand some of the things we've had that we felt.
I wouldn't want anybody. Well,
I would wish it on nobody.
No, I wouldn't want anybody to go through the things that I've gone through, and I have not gone through things on the level you guys have gone through things.
But
that's the thing. You can't quantify.
No, everybody's
tragedy.
mountain is their mountain.
Yeah, everybody. Perfect. That's
everybody's
a great
mountain
analogy.
everybody's climbing the same mountain. So what I was going to say about sitting down at Celebrate Recovery was, I didn't want to hear. First, I had a resume way before Tony. I lost 2 brothers to suicide, which is weird. So I could be the one-up guy. I've got I have a crazy. My life. I have a crazy story for every subject. But when it came to that, I didn't care. I would hear, oh, well, this person's been through this, or this person's been through that, or they've been. I don't care if the world's burning. This is where I was at 4 or 5 years ago. I don't care if the world's burning down for you. I feel bad, but I'm living in my own self-pity.
Yeah,
right.
And I'm living in my own wah-wah. And the thing that changed going to Celebrate Recovery is all of a sudden I'm looking at not one person in that room had my resume, but every person in that room together has my resume and then tenfold. So God really started to change me to tell me, hey, dude, you're not alone. There's people out there that are dealing with this. You guys, Dave called me and said, hey, there's let's talk to you. Somebody is going to get something out of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you go to Celebrate Recovery, and I start to realize, okay, some people can get some stuff out of me, but I was just blown away at how God was talking through these other people. We talked about affirmations, and we talked about people saying something that you're thinking about, or you're hearing, or you read. I would go to these. I would go on Friday nights, and all of a sudden I'm hearing 4 or 5 things that I'm dealing with, and for the first time, because I was open and receptive, I was starting to allow that to permeate the shell that I had put around me. Like, my shell cracked, and I didn't even see it happening, because I really feel that if I knew God was going to take away from me this giant self-protection shell that I had built myself around and was operating under, I don't know if I would have let him do it.
Right.
I really don't know if you had the choice. Like, does anybody ever ask anybody, hey, dude, do you want to believe in God and live through him and get his joy and everything and end up in eternity, or do you want to do this? Nobody ever asks that. Right. But if people had to literally make that choice, I'm starting to find out the dysfunction that comes from dysfunctional families and bad boundaries. And again, I'm not attacking parents. Everybody did the best that they could do.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But would anybody really say, okay, yeah, I do want, I got an awesome book from a guy, Dan, at my church, and it was called Healing for Damaged Emotions, and it had 2 really great things in there. One, ask the Holy Spirit what to pray for and what your problem is. And that's not something I comprehended before. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we know the Holy Spirit intercedes for us, that he prays for us and stuff like that. But I had never actually thought about that. And the other one was before you read this book, ask yourself seriously, do you want to heal? Because people, the mindset is, I don't know what healing's like. We all talk about healing.
We're so
being
used to
happy.
being broken, we don't know what it's like to
Yeah.
feel right.
Nobody does. And so to get into, I'm just thinking of all the people that spent time trying to help me in the last 4 or 5 years that I fought along the way, like left and right, thinking that I was right. But when you ask yourself this question, do I want to heal? And everybody can heal from something. When it's just you and you can accurately put down on paper what the pros and the cons are and what you have to do, how many people are truly going to choose that? You know? And so God kind of makes it easy for, like I said, if he would have put all that down on paper and said, this is what you're going to go through, this is the anxiety, this is the, this is everything,
Right, yeah.
who would choose that?
No, that's a
As
good
a
point.
human.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
So go back to being a kid. Yeah, it's awesome to have Jesus in a picture and we talk about him and we everything like that. But the process that I've been through, I wouldn't trade. You said earlier, there's a lot. I've done a lot of good. I've done a lot of bad. That was my story. That's what had to
Right,
bring
and
me
it made us who we are. I mean,
to
it's
this
about
point.
it's about where we are now.
That old adage about walking down the street and falling in a hole, and then doing it again the next day, and then the third day trying to walk around the hole. I jumped in every hole over and over and over again to prove, hey, you know what? I'm smart enough to get out of this hole.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I never comprehending, dude, maybe just don't.
Yeah, there's some dudes standing there going, if
don't
you were
put
so
up-
smart, why didn't you
take
just
a different way.
take a different road?
Right.
You know what? I had a great argument for that, too.
Yeah.
Because I will be the guy to get out of the hole. You never get out of the hole.
Yeah.
So,
if any of maybe the 4 or 5 people that are listening to us right now, 6, maybe really 6. That's
thinking 6.
dude. That's market share, baby.
I think my wife and son are.
I know.
listening.
I'm totally kidding. It could be any problem. I mean, some people like me, I struggle with tobacco endlessly, and it's almost insane. It's almost nonsensical.
tobacco's as hard to quit as heroin.
I'll buy that, dude, because it's not.
Is it really
fun.
a struggle, or is it the fact that you don't struggle with it?
No, dude, I've been fighting it for years, dude. On, off, try this, try that. What you know what I'm saying? It could be that. It could be somebody who is into a 5th of whiskey a day and can't knock it off. Family's falling apart. It could be, I don't know, whatever. You're spelling your name in blow every day or whatever it is. And it seems like there's no way to fix it, so you just continue down that road. Or maybe they don't even want to fix it. They just think they can do that indefinitely.
Well, it might just be like rolling down the window, though. At this point, it's not really even it's not a real aspect. It's not about, putting a gun to your head or going into going head on at a train. That's crazy and out of the ordinary. But tobacco or drinking, that's just as crazy. But it's become so normal.
Yeah.
Why would you look at it any other way?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just I guess the point I'm trying to make is if somebody or it's you or whatever. I guess I'm going to ask a couple questions. It's pretty easy to find this program on the web. You can
Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit. So part of the 12-step program that they have is, your 4th step, you do an inventory. So you go through and you write down all your harms, all your fears, your resentments and stuff like that. You get them out on paper. You tell somebody else. You tell God. And you tell somebody else. So you're actually speaking life into what you've done. And that process alone can be pretty healing just because you're finally, I had a 2-year secret crack habit that nobody knew. Nobody in my life, except for people in Brightmoor that I got shot at, or some guy put an axe through my van, and just stupid stuff. But nobody, I got away with it. And so you tell somebody about that, and there's healing in that because you don't understand how much you're carrying around by stuffing that, and how that transcends into. Oh, if people now these aren't conscious thoughts; these are quick thoughts. But what if people found out, or they're going to judge me, or they're going to this, or they're going to that? And but what it does is it really starts to show you like some core some core issues. One of the most interesting facts one of the most interesting things that I heard was from my ministry leader in relation to lust and acting out in the form of masturbation or addiction to porn, was the human body, mind, can't have anxiety and be aroused at the same time. They're two polar opposite feelings. So when you start to understand that, you start to understand, okay, then, maybe the porn addiction isn't some crazy pervert,
right,
who's
it's
just
stress management.
It's literally about stress management. So going through, working these steps and doing these lessons and getting accountability partners. So we have accountability partners. So there's 4 or 5 people, that I can talk to during the week that know everything that I'm dealing with.
Wow.
And I can say, if I was trying to do smoking or quit smoking, I'd just be like, hey, I would have to call somebody first. Now, that's me willing to give this up.
Yeah, you have to want to change.
But these people are there for that reason.
Yeah.
And, one of the greatest friends that I have, kind of like a brother from this, I literally looked at him and said, wow, I have nothing in common with this guy. But I was in a step study with him. And so a step study is a 6 to 8 month process where a group of guys get together and work these questions in these books and work the 12 steps. And I love Dave, but he would come in and he would cant his head to the left and he would stare at the carpet. And I used to sit there and think, man, this guy hates the carpet today. I don't know, and I'm not talking about any of, the stuff that he was dealing with, but within 3 or 4 months of doing this guy who I didn't know before this, who's in his mid-30s, maybe early 40s, he's our age.
Yeah.
All of a sudden he starts smiling. And he's smiling all of the time. He's starting to smile. And so you don't talk, when it's your turn, you talk in these groups, but James is kind of different. So it got around to me, and I looked at everybody, and I go, do you realize how smiley he is today? I mean, this guy is just beaming from eye to eye. And so that was the first time that I had seen that when you work this program, and you work this with God, and you surrender, he can start to take this stuff away from you. And so what you were talking about with, they have, depending on there's usually one every night of the week. I know on Monday nights they have them at the Naz in Brighton. They have them at Life Church in Canton. On Tuesday nights it's at St. Matthew. Is it St. Matt's in Wixom? Thursday night they have it at Brightmoor at 13 and M5, and they also have it at Ward. Friday night is ours, Connection Church. So those are in these areas. They're usually 6 to 7 approximately is like a meal, so you can go and for like $3 or $4 you can eat. And then from 7 to 8 is every week they have a speaker. So it's either a testimony from somebody suffering from, talking about struggling with or got relief from any sort of areas, porn addiction, alcohol, codependency. That's what I went in for, was codependency. It's not as much a male topic as it is for females. So I do know that there's a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot more females that fight codependency than there are males. There's people in there for drugs, for just general dysfunction. People were abused when they were kids and stuff like this. This program, you're not going to go in there and go, okay, I got to quit smoking, so I'm gonna do this program. What you're going to do is you're going to go in there and you're going to start being honest and being real with yourself with a bunch of people that are going through the same thing or have gone through the same thing as you, that are able, I'm using this word, I don't know if they would, they take the edge off of saying, hey, this is what I did. Hey, you know what? I did that too. And this is what I got out of it. And so we're talking about affirmations, and we're talking about one of the things that I'm completely just in awe of when it comes to God. Including this moment right now.
Yeah.
From the beginning of time, he planned this.
Yeah.
This is not an accident. So when I show up for this step study, there's a step study, and they just came out. The program's been around 25 years. They just came up with like a second step study, like the second set of books, which is like a maintenance. And I lead one on Saturday morning for a couple of guys. And no matter what you're dealing with, when you're in that room and you're talking about this and you're being open and honest and you're saying stuff that you've never said to anybody, you know, and you're saying, wow, I'm a verbal abuser. That was another huge thing with me. Dave can probably attest. I mean, I'm insanely quick-witted, and
I can relate.
I will tell you on his show, I'm funnier and smarter than he is, and he will say the same thing about me. But you can really do a lot of damage. I would have been a lot better off physically assaulting everybody in my life. They would have been a lot better off too, but I didn't. I was a verbal abuser, and I did a lot of damage, and so a majority of that is gone, and that comes from, like, the tobacco would be gone. That comes from getting all of this crap out, because the tobacco or the porn or the this, I'm not saying that they're not problems on their own, but a lot of times they're a self-medication, a protection measure.
They're a symptom.
They're a learned behavior.
Right.
They're a communication pattern.
To deal with something deeper. Yeah.
Well, I had it's how we have to go back to realize the parents did the best they can. So going through this, you know, you get into this and you start to realize what's healthy. And
blame is...
But it's a stage, though, because at first you're like, it's not my fault. This is what my parents did. And so the people that are in there for 10 or 15 years, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, but you got to forgive them, too.
Right.
Because what were they handed?
Well,
so
it's a condition.
It's like but it's a well-rounded, you have to have, nobody has to have anything. I look back and I have to have compassion. Me and my mom are estranged. We've only talked twice in like the last 8 years. But I now get to a point where I just, nothing more than this. God, between me and my mom, that's up to you, But I'm going to tell you that I don't have any rules. I don't have any, I'm not saying I'll never talk to her again. I'm just saying it's up to you. And now at this stage, after digging all of this crap out and finding out all of these resentments, you said something about being a kid and having a situation that scars you for life or a memory. It's amazing what we remember, and parents don't even remember that it happened.
And the funny thing is, you'll remember something that someone else you may know is involved in, and your recollection or the thing that you chose to focus on from the situation, completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. But we're up against a break. We ran a little over, so we're gonna let Kenny. Not your fault, man. No big deal.
That's fine.
We'll let Kenny pay a few bills, and then we'll be back with James in a few minutes. Hi, welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. We've got DiBiase and Kenny in studio, and we were joined with our good friend James. And he is telling us his story. And there was one thing that we've been topic jumping a lot, but it's okay because there's a lot to tell. And I think if you put it all together in the end, you're going to get something out of it. But there was one point I'd like to discuss for a moment, and we were talking about being brought up in the church, and we mentioned denominations for a minute. We mentioned Lutheran and Catholic, and you said Baptist, Presbyterian, and I think that's one of the things that's changed about it, because the way I look at it is some of my mentors, some of the people that I look to when I have questions or when I have issues I need to deal with. One of the guys was concerned. He's more Pentecostal than some of the leaders at my church, which is Baptist. And so he was a little concerned. He kept telling me, he's like, well, I really think you should talk to the pastor about that. You should talk to the pastor about that. You should talk to the pastor about it. I'm like, but I have talked to the pastor about it. I want your thoughts on it, And we talked about it, and I told him, I said, look, here's where I'm at. I'm not Baptist. I'm not Lutheran. I'm not Catholic. I'm not anything. I'm a Christian. I am concerned with and devoting my life to Christianity. This is what I'm about. This is what I want to learn about. This is what I want to follow, and this is what I want to tell people about, is the good news. okay, of Christianity. And people in the past were so hung up on what denomination they were that you got Christians fighting amongst themselves over who's right.
Well,
They still are.
And they still
they
will.
are, of course.
And
They always
they
will.
still will. But I think what's important, I don't think you are what your church is. I think your church should not define you. You should define your church.
It's I don't know what the biblical outlook on the denominations is, but to me that's pride of man, right? Like, hey, my way
absolutely,
is,
denomination
my
is
way is
doctrine
better than
from
yours,
men. Yeah,
and that goes to religion. And I would not say that I'm religious, but I say that I daily seek a relationship with Christ.
there you go.
And God. I personally go to an Assemblies of God church, and it was 5 years before I was there that I had any clue. I took a partnership class, and they told me, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know it. I didn't know what that was. You know, I knew what it wasn't from denominations that I had been to before, but the more that I get into going to, even we mentioned Baptist and Presbyterian, they're different today than they were from my perception.
And they're different within their own denomination.
Right, but I don't know. Here's something interesting I said, and I'm going to kind of tie this in, or something interesting I heard about having an argument with another person. If we're all the body of Christ, how can I be arguing with another part of the body of Christ? That's creating dysfunction and taking away fluidity from that. But if you look at the fact that we all are Christians and we all are the body of Christ, and I could be wrong, this is my ignorant opinion, but then the denomination is literally, not to make a joke, is there a denomination that says that God's going to breathe fire? That's crazy. When you look at the differences and the practices and the this and the that, isn't that just the pride of man coming in a little bit to say, hey, we are a little bit better? At the end of the day, it's God's word, right? And it's just, hey, we're picking out these over here and we're making that more important and we're picking out those. And I completely understand that we need ministers, we need pastors, we need leaders, we need, just like we need Rick Warren, we also need Joel Osteen, and we need some of these other people. But
they're all reaching people in their own way.
Isn't the Bible about a personal relationship with Jesus Christ?
Exactly.
Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, it is.
So if it's a body of Christ, and we're, I'm reminded, I do a devotional every day. My dad got me a devotional this year, which is just different for the relationship of me and my dad. But it's called Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. And it started out with one of my accountability partners. I said, dude, you got to check this out. And I recommend this. Just check it out to anybody that's ever done a devotional. Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. And so I sent it to one guy just so he would get it every day, because we were trying to get into the Word is what it was. You know? So let's start just by adding one tiny thing a day. And this devotional is not like, now I haven't seen them all, but it's not like the 5 or 6 that I've looked at over my time. It literally is all about, it's like repetitive. Like every 10 days, you're going to hear, not always 10 days, but, hey, man, it's just about me and you. Hey, trust in me. Hey, open your eyes to me. Hey, seek me on a daily basis. And so bringing it back to the denomination thing, I don't know if that's something that I want to get wrapped up in. I'll be completely honest, as recently as this year, I'm having arguments with people about denominations and what's important and, what should be important. So I have zero time in of just saying, hey, I'm accepting you because you're this person.
Exactly.
I still don't know how to function, because as we're having this conversation, I'm noticing my pride says, wait, I go to an Assemblies of God church, so I must be right. But if I go from my Assemblies of God church and go 100 miles down the road to another Assemblies of God, guess what? It's going to be different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From culturally, it's going to be from everything, and that's all by plan. But that's where we get all tripped up. And so much the politics of church. And
yeah, that part I have zero interest in.
Yeah.
In fact, I would word it like the church that we attend just happens to be a Baptist church.
Right.
It's, you know,
you have an awesome church.
It is a very awesome
you have a
church,
really,
and
you
it's
have a very family church.
It doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. That it could be whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? It could
Right.
be whatever.
Well, that's what I explained to the pastor.
It doesn't really
when
matter to
we,
me.
I mean, you know the trials and tribulations that I went through just to get baptized.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Satan did not want that to
oh
happen.
my God!
Yeah,
he
did not want that to
misses
happen.
me.
No, he does.
Sends me cards all the time. He's like, "Where are you, dude?
Traffic.
You were one of my favorites."
Stuck in
Send you
traffic, bro.
traffic.
Sorry.
And you know, I made it clear to Aaron when we talked about it because at first I didn't want to get baptized. I'm like, I was baptized. What do I need to be baptized for? And then he explained the whole thing, but I made it clear to him. I'm like, he's like, well, why do you want to be baptized? I'm like, because I want to join this church, and that was what I needed to do to join this church. And I told him, I said, the big picture to me, I understand eternity. I understand making a public statement. That is what adult baptism is about. I am making a statement to everyone around me that I am choosing to follow Jesus Christ, that I believe he's the Son of God, and that I will receive eternal salvation through him and only through him. But it was I made it very clear. It's not that I want to become a Baptist. I'm not leaving my Lutheranism to become a Baptist. It's that I found my church.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It could be anything.
And when you find it, there is no
right.
There
right.
is no. I know people at my church and people at other churches, and they say the same thing. I can go anywhere at this
and
stage
cool,
of my life,
yeah.
and I will not find what I get at my church. But I know you're the same way, and you're the same way. And I know people at, have you talked to people that go to Northridge? That church is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, Kat.
So many.
Our
Kat goes to
longtime
Northridge.
co-host.
Yeah,
she goes to
we
Northridge.
were just there for their Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
show.
amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like only half pig, and it was pretty awesome.
And they're doing great work over there.
Did you go to
Totally being sarcastic, too.
It is, though.
But it is, I know.
Did you see the one where the curtains caught on fire?
No, that was the week before. I missed the actual Iron Maiden pyrotechnics display.
Twisted
But
Sister.
yeah,
Anyway.
but no, it was really cool, and it's big, and that's the only thing that kind of
That's not me.
throws me off.
Right,
but
same here.
I like the pastor. I like his message.
I've watched some sermons online, and his messages are
Yeah,
the way
I'd like
he
to-
delivers them is really inspiring.
Yeah, it'd be a guy I like to meet and have a
Yeah,
conversation
I
with.
agree.
Can I tell you how I met him?
You did meet him?
Yeah, can I tell you how?
Sure.
Yeah, but of
Please.
course.
Driving down the road, you're going to understand what I'm saying, but I'm aware of my situation. Wherever I go, I'm aware. Walking out of a store or whatever, I'm aware of what's around me. Just driving down the road, and all of a sudden I go, that guy just lost an iPad off the top of his car, middle of the rain. I watched an iPad fly off of this guy's car, and I was with Carrie, and she goes, "What are you talking about?" Whatever. She had been going to Northridge before she moved out towards Heartland. So I pulled over, and I just reached down and I go, "See, I found an iPad. I told you, She's like, "How did you see that 50 feet away?" I'm like, "I don't know." So we start trying to back hack this iPad. And as I do, the voice command works, but you can't get through, the code or whatever. And as I did that, and I'm just throwing names out there just to see what would pop up, some of the people from my church popped up. And then his first name popped up, Brad. And she's like, "Wow, I wonder if that's the pastor's." It ended up being his iPad that he does all of his sermons off of. And we were able to give that back to him, which is just astronomically crazy.
That's awesome.
Who
yeah,
finds
that
an
is.
iPad
That's awesome.
flying through the air in the rain?
Right,
ends
yeah.
up being his iPad.
That's a good. I can't top that. That's a good story.
I'll have to tell Brad that I know the guy that found his
Yeah.
iPod.
We did talk for a period of time, like real quick on that one. But no, I've never met him in any other way. The Glory of Christmas, though, is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
Thank
But
you for
I
saying
think
such nice things about that place. It is an amazing place.
You know what? Who was I just? I don't remember who I was talking to, but they're like, "I cannot believe it. Everybody I went to high school with goes here. Everybody,
That's-
people,
dude,
we were talking about people that you
Yeah.
don't think in the seeker-sensitive churches that are out there nowadays.
Yeah.
They are just. I worked for a guy 6-7 years ago who went there and he served and stuff like that. And I don't remember where he went. Like, he did mission trips for them and stuff. But awesome things are coming out of that church. Like you said, I mean, I already have a church, and it's a little big for me. I'm not going to lie. I've taken some classes there. I've done their Every Man a Warrior there. That was just an awesome program.
I hear that is phenomenal.
It taught me how to do quiet times, which I didn't. We hear you got to be in the Word every day. You got to talk to God every day. Until I took that class, I had absolutely no comprehension of. It was just like, hey, God, what's up?
Right.
You know, like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And the crazy part about learning the quiet times the way that they did it is I was able to, I feel I was able to meditate on a verse, and I was able to get knowledge I didn't have 5 minutes later. And so I feel like I got an understanding, and it was from that. I'd love to say that I do quiet times every day. I don't look that way. If I did, life would be a lot better. But no, there's just awesome things are happening in that church.
I have a couple of friends that I know that went through that study, and I'm telling you, they came out the other side of it different people. I mean, in a good way, you know. And it's pretty intense from what I understand.
Didn't you even suggest that I did
that?
that?
Yeah, I did.
You know,
I did.
You know, when we talk, because I'm listening, right? And I know there's some people that are going to hear, like, we get it. Like, we understand when he brings up, like, when he says things like quiet times, right? And he's explaining this, and, you know, you say things like, I don't want people to think, if they're listening to this, that, like, this is creepy in any way, or...
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Because it's not weird. It's just, there's really, sometimes you got to have names for stuff. So when he says things like accountability partners, unfortunately, when you say things like that, a lot of times people are like, oh, whatever.
Right.
But you have to name it something.
I told somebody I had a mentor the other day, and they looked at me like I was nuts.
Exactly.
I'm 45.
Well, the first time
tutor,
said,
like, what are you talking about? Like, so what are you learning? You know, so I want people to try to remain open-minded, because it took me personally a while to
35 years
really become open-minded and not automatically dismiss and reject things because it sounds strange.
Well, the first time he said safe space, I'm thinking of people.
If he says safe space,
special snowflake.
No, if he says safe space, he's got to leave.
Well, he actually said safe place, and I'm like immediately thinking safe space.
Yeah, we can't
like,
have any of
that.
that.
Not the election, please. Let's not talk about the election. I'm just getting over it.
But you know how freeing it is to even comprehend that's an option?
Yeah.
And again, to bring it back to Celebrate Recovery, because that's where I'm getting all, you know, that's where this healing was presented to me from my safe space at the tables at Celebrate Recovery. But
said it anyway.
Not safe place. Oh no, now he said safe space.
He did. He said it anyway.
I'm imagining him coloring and petting a cat at the same time. So
crazy cat lady. You know what? I can tell the cat story. I can tell a cat story. So I'm 42, and was I 25 or 26? 16 years. So in my early 20s, I did a lot of ecstasy. And at the end of that experience, if you know anything about that drug, it sucks the serotonin out of you. It leaves you in a depression and in a funk. And so when I stopped doing that, I had no way of going back up. I was doing it every month or so. Yeah. And so I had enough to ride this roller coaster. And a couple months after the last time I did it, I found out a girl that I had been seeing had an abortion on me. And it was a call to, hey, you grew up in the church, you know, when we get it, I got it at 25 or 26, but didn't get any better. But I really went through this horrible situation where I had been given an opportunity, and I felt like God took it away from me because all I was doing was drinking and drugs, and I don't have a clean term for it, but whoring around. I wasn't doing anything worth, I was hurting people left and right when it came to just the person that I was. And through that and the depression from the ecstasy, I had a really long day with a gun. And I was positive this is what I was going to do. And so, funny, you mentioned a cat. I had a girl. We had broken up, and she had showed up the year before on Memorial Weekend with a cat, and said, "Hey, you know, we're getting back together. Everything's fine."
With an organism that you have to support.
And we had a great weekend.
Awesome.
We thought we had a great weekend, and then she was gone Monday morning. But I was stuck with a cat.
Oh.
I didn't want a cat. I never wanted a cat. And I just remember coming out of the shower one day, and you live alone. I mean, this is nothing horrible, but I didn't have any clothes on, and this cat climbed up the back of my calf all the way to my shoulders with its nails. And I just remember going, I don't want cats. I don't want cats. And so, fast forward to the following May, and this whole thing came down, and somebody had there was a hippie girl who everybody was moving into apartments. We were in our mid-20s, and then people were screwing things up, so they were just moving back with their parents, you know, and people were letting animals go. You know, they were just being completely irresponsible. And this hippie girl had said to us, you have to take care of the animal. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just let the animal go because you're going back to your parents' house. And I was the least responsible person you've ever met. And so that day, I'm having my breakdown, and I've got this cat. And I ignored the cat, like, all day long. You know, the cat's loving on me, doing whatever. And it got towards the end of the day. And all of a sudden, I started hearing her voice saying, hey, you got to find a home for this cat. You know, and I'm just like, hey, I got to get this cat away from me. So I threw the cat out of the room. And I'm not making this up. I had lever handles, and the cat learned how to jump up and hit the handle and come in. And this cat would not stop. All day long, this cat would not stop. And at about 1 a.m, I didn't give up my plan. I just said, okay, fine, I'll go find you a home. You know, that's what I'm going to do then. I'm not going to make my decision today. I'm going to find you a home. And I spent 10 days trying to find that cat a home. And it was the greatest cat in the world, and nobody could take this cat. And then, so it didn't solve my problems. But when you look at, with 16 years, almost 17 years, since I decided, hey, I'm going to change.
I'm going to worry about someone else more than I worry,
well,
or something else.
No, I'm going to get healthy. Like, I knew in that moment that God had called. You know, he was there, but I didn't have the skills. I didn't have anything. And you know, over the next 16 years, I would love to say at that age, you know, things got better. They didn't. A couple years later, I would get introduced to crack from a guy. I didn't know what it was. I just took a hit, and it's like, holy cow. And it was a guy I didn't ever see often or anything like that, and I saw how he got it. And so for 2 years, even that I thought wasn't a big deal because I would do it once a month. It had a similar insane effect on me like I thought ecstasy did. And so I would run down and I would grab some, and I was making money. You know, I wasn't losing anything, but it was just this secret habit that I had. And then I would go, and then in 2007, like I told you, I was codependent. That's what I went in for, people-pleasing and low self-worth and self-esteem and stuff. And I had two brothers. One was Jeff. He was... Pablo was his nickname. He was 13 months younger than me. And I had another younger brother who was 8 years younger than me, Johnny Popular. And so we all lived together. And in 2007, Jeff wasn't dealing with life very well. And he didn't. If I go back to about the same time that I had my suicide attempt, I started to realize that Jeff was acting exactly like me and was creating just a total crap storm behind him. He was leaving a lot of people in his wake. You knew Jeff. He did it. I overdid it. Jeff overdid me.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of the things that pushed us. Said, "Hey, you're not being a very good example." Again, no dramatic change in my life or anything, but in 2007, he had a son that was a year and a half old, and he didn't have the tools to deal with life, and he told me a couple times. He goes, I just want to make sure this is done before I'm gone. And I never caught it. Like, I look back now with the information I have, and I'm like, oh, dude, you.
Yeah.
Man, if I only. And we were fighting. We were fighting the day that it happened. And this is literally where Dave's brother, Tony, or T-Wiz, as Jeff called him, really, like, solidifies in my life. Jeff had said that he was going to end his life, and I didn't believe him. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I was on the phone with Tony all day long. And so Tony had as much authority on these situations with my brother, knowing my brother, as I did. So it wasn't like I was talking to a friend. I was talking to somebody, and me and Tony clearly discussed it. Dude, don't go home. He's not. We've been here 1,000 times. He's looking for attention. He's basically, what I did is I bounced my ideas and my thoughts off Tony, and Tony goes, yeah, dude, I mean, what else are you going to,
Right.
He has his own perception of Jeff, so he threw out here his 2 cents. And about 4:45, this is the evil that was still in me at the time. I went out of my way after talking to my uncle about the situation. And I told someone, Jeff's at home, he's killing himself. And I went out of my way to call him and to use every derogatory term you could think of for a human being and tell him that he was, go ahead and do it. We're all going to be a lot better off without you. And 15 minutes later, he did. And that's when everything changed. And so up to this point, I'd been a dysfunctional. I'm never going to say I was a drug addict, but I did whatever was there, and I enjoyed it. And, that's how I got through most of my life. And when we went to tell my grandma, there was a situation at my house, and I got in an argument with somebody at my house that offered me drugs to forget about Jeff, and said, "Here, this will make you forget he ever existed." And it literally was like the gates of hell opened up in me. And so all my years of thinking I was a hip, I was past the heavy metal stage. I thought I was a hippie. I felt like I was 400 pounds. And I felt like I could walk through a house. And I mentally committed in my head to end somebody's life in that second. And if it wasn't for God stepping in the craziest way, somebody would not be here today. And I would be in prison. And I would go on to mentally make that decision and do everything I could to do that one more time in the next following year to somebody else for ripping me off. And for a year and a half, I found out the guy that I was working with at the time, we thought he got a CPL because he was checking out empty houses and stuff like that. But it came back to me, he actually got it for me because he was worried that I was going to do something crazy. And I can't imagine what anybody dealt with at that point, dealing with me. But so through this, my little brother up and split and went to Kalamazoo. And somebody thought at Jeff's funeral that it was the best thing they could do was tell everybody that John was homosexual and he was gay. And coming from the Baptist background that we had and the strict church and the fire and brimstone, I wouldn't know this until 2 years later. Everybody in the family's eyes changed towards John, and things got different. And he would start his own battle, and he would have he would have 2 or 3 suicide attempts in the next couple of years. And then when he finally came home for Thanksgiving, came home, meaning came to this side of the state 3 years later, after Jeff passed, he had a suicide attempt in my basement. So all this is happening, and but John was different. So this is what I said about Jeff. Man, if I'd only known that you were going through this, you know. And so John, what did I do? He's dealing with, I'm not going to lie, I was a pretty tough guy. Jeff was absolute insanity. But for John to grow up and hide this and deal with this and whatever comes with not being able to tell people that you're gay, he's the toughest person. He's the toughest guy I've ever met. Yeah. You know, for him to be able to deal with it, because I'm 220 pounds, Jeff was 160, John was 110 pounds. He thought he was 200 pounds, soaking wet with weights. And so go to the following year, and at this point I'm in church. I got baptized, after Jeff died. And I started dating this girl who said, hey, if you want to see me, you got to see me every day. And that meant I couldn't go to my Bible Institute anymore. I couldn't go to my my Bible study. And what I was doing at that point, I didn't know, but I was trading God for codependency. And I wouldn't know. I'm getting to this whole point here in a second. But so we would get to the following year, and I'm codependently in this relationship. And John gets to August 5th, which was his birthday, and he was doing a lot of pills, and he was doing a lot of drinking. And he had so much insanity that year. I don't know if you know this, Dave. He, stole cars. Oh, yeah. He did stuff that he just...
Which was... I couldn't even... I was like, what?
No, I mean, it just...
Totally outside of what this guy was.
He had a whole nother person, and he went cold turkey on August 5th. And then we were like, dude, you can't. You have to go to the hospital or something. It's not an option. 20-some-odd pills a day. You can't just quit because you think you're going to quit. And he made it to Christmas, and I'll never forget. It was the first Christmas that I always was the stray dog. I always was. I never really had a family, and so Christmas I didn't really like Christmas because I was always invited to watch happy families open presents and. Yeah. And so I did go to a Christmas that morning, and it was probably the first Christmas I ever enjoyed. And I was like, "Wow, cool." You know, and John couldn't come out because he was dealing with something, and then I got a phone call at 3:00 saying they found him in the garage, and so John had ended his life, and so through two of these, Tony, he was the only one that stuck with me on a daily basis after Jeff and watched the absolute insanity. I think he's the only one that truly knew how absolutely insane I was. And everybody was leaving me at this point. And Tony stuck around for about 2 years or about 2.5 years. And then I kind of realized, dude, you're nuts. And I didn't pursue Tony as much as I had before because and so Tony and I kind of separated a little bit and we weren't talking. I talked to him when John died. And so you fast forward through all of this, and somebody tells me, "Hey, I had me and that girl were breaking up," and she said something to the effect of, I think we're codependent. And so, like you were talking about earlier, those moments that just kind of stop your life. All of a sudden, I heard that word codependent, and I'm like, "What is that word? I don't know what that word means." And my life stopped. And so, in the middle of this fight, I've got this girl going at me, and I'm like, codependent. I gotta Google that. And so this is the funny thing about codependency. So she went and did whatever she had to do. We were living together at the time. And I Googled codependency, and I bought this book called Codependency No More, and I spent an entire weekend reading about codependency, and I'm like, dude, it's awesome. I'm messed up, and now I know I'm messed up, but it's not my fault. And it says here I'm healed. I'm starting to get healing as soon as I admit it. And I start working on it. I'm like, I've gotten better since Friday. And so she came back Monday morning, and I go, look, we're messed up, but we can fix it. And that's the irony of codependency. I just wanted to fix things. But my point was, all I could hear was this guy from a year before telling me, hey, this group, Celebrate Recovery, started at church, and he had known me from the suicides of my brothers. And so I started going to this Celebrate Recovery, and I immediately got in, and I immediately got help from codependency. Like I said earlier, there's not a lot of guys that are codependent. It's a female-based thing. The majority. I'm probably using the wrong words, but I was figuring out I had boundaries, and I don't have to wake you up or make your coffee, and it transcended really funny when I went out on a date. I don't have to open your door. You open your own door. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't understand. I was just like, I don't have to do everything for anybody anymore. So I started working through that, and in the process of working through that, I tried to do the first step study, but we got to the fourth step, and I was just like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm good. And so another one came around, about 8 months later, and I got into that one, and then Aiden, my nephew, Jeff's son, he had Cub Scouts and he had baseball, so I was like, can't do that. I gotta go take care of this. And then there was a third one that I don't even remember the third one. But so 3 times I've sat through this 12-step study, 4 or 5 months, and then I quit. And then so the fourth one, we get to the inventory, and I'm positive I'm going to finish it this time. It's like not running joke. They're not making fun of me, but they're like, dude, when are you ever going to just let this crap go? And we had just started the inventory, and I get a call. I think it was on a Monday morning from Dave. And Tony died. And I'll never forget the first thing that the question was, it was just him. It was him by himself. And I didn't have to tell Dave that my opinion was that's not possible.
Right.
That's Dave was being clear with me in his moment, and I'm like, no, you don't get where Tony's been with me. I don't know where he's been with anybody else, but and I'll never forget we found out pretty quickly. We were positive that that's not what it was, and it took a little bit of a while. And so anyway, instead of doing my 4th step, I went downhill for 5 months. Because now I was dealing with reliving everything that had happened with Jeff and John. Only nobody was in my face about it, and I was missing Tony. And long story short, I signed up for a 5th one, and then my colon exploded. And God now gave me the time, and he gave me the effort, and he finally said, hey, it's time for you to face this. And I really started doing that step study last year, and I did an inventory, and they kind of joke with me. Inventories are, 2 hours, 3 hours with somebody else, or 10 or 20 pages, and I had a 69-page inventory. And my sponsor literally he was with me for 12 and a half hours that day and sat down for 9.5 hours, and he was leaving for China on Tuesday. So he got this in. And I've never felt more healing than I did when I took that step study. And now I'm doing another one. And what I'm finding is the core issues like we were talking about earlier, dealing with anything but tobacco you talked about or codependency. My life is riddled, I'm not, believe me, with the guys I hung out with, I was not the toughest guy, but I'm 220 pounds, and I'm solid, and I'll fight a bear. But it sucks to find out that my life is riddled with fear and insecurity. And it comes from abandonment issues, and it comes from all these tools that weren't given to the generations before me. And if I have to celebrate recovery is where I learn how to deal with this, where I learn how to be okay with it, where I learn how to figure out this is all part of God's plan. If somebody else would have called me and asked me to do this radio thing, the way Dave talked to me about it, if I didn't know him, I wouldn't have done it because I was like, why would anybody want to talk to me? But the truth is that somebody needs to hear this about this program.
And even if it's just one person,
there is one person. That's what we say when we give a test. There is one person. It's not by design. It's not by design. It's completely by design. Everybody's in this room. So
not by our control.
What I would say, if you're interested, I don't care what you're dealing with. You're not alone. And there's somebody that, if you show up, you're supposed to be there, and somebody's going to say something that you were supposed to hear. It's completely anonymous. What's said there stays there. Get on the Celebrate Recovery website. Go to the Celebrate Recovery locator so you know where the groups and you know where the meetings are.
And is that Celebrate Recovery?
CelebrateRecovery.com. Celebrate Recovery on Facebook. Connection Church has it. The NAS has it in Brighton.
Don't forget to look up James's testimony. Like I said, just in the search bar, type James story.
And Connection Church is one word.
Yeah.
Or you can go.
I typed it as two and gotcha.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. But I've had knowledge my entire life. I've done some really bad things, and some bad things have happened to me. But I'll tell you that God plays Celebrate Recovery. He allows me to work in the kitchen. He allows me to clean up afterwards. He allows me to have accountability partners and to help people. I'm a leader in training, so at some point I'll actually be a full leader. But it isn't even about that. I found a place where I belong, and it isn't because I'm screwed up. It's because I finally decided to be honest with myself and that I was deserving. And this is, one thing that happened to me on Easter is I was trying to figure out why I didn't understand Easter, and I felt like God said to me, hey, I'll make you a deal. I'll forgive you for all of your sins. I'm gonna allow my son to die for all of your sins. I remember saying in my head, it's no deal. I can't accept that. And I felt like he said to me, but here's the problem, I already did. So why are you not grabbing it? So it wasn't about, I don't deserve healing, I don't deserve forgiveness. God has a plan for me. If it's scooping poop, God has a plan for me. And I don't know what it is, but I'm very grateful to be alive and to be able to say thank you, Jesus, every single day. Use me any way you can.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows us personally
from 26 years ago,
from far enough back, the fact that we're even sitting in this room talking about this is testimony enough that there's something right. That there's something to it.
With long hairs with Trans Ams.
Yeah, the thing is I was pretty wild back in the day. I couldn't even hung with you guys. Okay,
dude, we were
the
way
stories
stupid.
You tell me.
Yeah,
it's like and we thought my group was rowdy, and it's like I couldn't even hang with you guys. But I wanna thank James for coming on and being with us.
It was awesome.
Appreciate it.
And sharing that. Get in touch with Connection Church. There will be information on our website soon. You can contact them through our Facebook page. Go to connectionchurch.com. Just know that you're not alone, especially in this holiday season, and that there's help out there.
We meet tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Come for a meal.
This has been Down the Rabbit Hole. To God be the glory. Great work he has done. We'll see you next week.